Hello and welcome to MMO Weekly, Episode 3. I'm your host, Sal Manzo, along with MMO Executive Editor Mike Mayer. Mike, how we doing after today, buddy?
We're doing pretty good. We just found out the roster news that Robinson Cano has been designated for assignment by the Mets.
It has happened, as Gary Cohen said. I know it's not nice, I guess, to trot on people's graves, so to speak, but I think a lot of Met fans are very happy about this decision, especially after last night, that the ESPN broadcast. They brought up how, it could be Dom Smith or J.D. Davis getting DFA'd, to keep Cano, and I didn't know, that was something I never really thought about or heard before, so I think it got a lot of Met fans panicked, and maybe Dom Smith heard the booth because he had 4 hits last night, looked tremendous. That seemed to be kind of the final nail in the coffin for Cano, so to speak. And now this team is truly as versatile as they want to be, I think, as long as they want to be faster. And I think it speaks to ownership and the new regime that they're putting their money where their mouth is as far as winnings first. They weren't worried about, is it $42 million or whatever was left on Cano's deal between this year and next year? Clearly he, is bat-wise, everything really is, not a major league level player anymore. And, really good on the Mets front office and new ownership for seeing that and understanding, that he wasn't helping the roster or helping the team there. So I give them a lot of credit. This is a really good step in the right direction.
Yeah, I think you have to give the Mets credit and Steve Cohen and Billy Epler for making the best baseball move for the team. Like you said, Cano hasn't looked good offensively. The bat is slow. He's slow in general, which has made him a bad base runner at this point and hindered him on defense. So at this point, what he was bringing to the team was his clubhouse presence. And I know Lindor and a couple of other veterans mentioned that last night, but this is also why the Mets went out and got veterans like Escobar and Cano and Scherzer to have that presence. So, I mean, I know Cano was a positive influence on those guys, but there's still a ton of veterans in that clubhouse, and I think the Mets will be fine in that regard. But yeah, it's good to see that they're making the baseball move instead of letting the money demand what they do. I mean, let's be real. If this was the Wilpon still owning the team, we'd be talking about like Travis Janikowski going down or Dom Smith going to the minors. We wouldn't be talking about Robinson Cano getting designated for assignment, which is ultimately what the Mets needed to do, and that's what they did. I thought the writing has kind of been on the wall. He only got 2 starts in the last week. I think the Mets finally realized, well, hey, we're here to win games, and Robinson Cano isn't helping us win games right now. So I think this has slowly been working towards that. Thankfully, again, the Mets doing the right thing. A lot of teams in this position would just run out Cano out there and every day and hope they're going to get some return on the $37 to $40 million that they owe them. The Mets haven't done that over the last week, and then ultimately today made the right move.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you talk about kind of how the writing was on the wall. Like Friday night, obviously we'll get to the no-hitter, but, Cano was DHing 6th in the lineup, was ahead of Cano and McNeil, which, I know you and I were both, flipping out about because it's ridiculous. But I don't know if, so to speak, I know Cano kind of hit that double. Well, it was a single and then got thrown out, trying to leg into a double. And then Dom forcing the issue last night, getting 4 hits. I agree that the writing was on the wall. I know Buck likes to, get guys in and stuff like that, which is why Cano played Friday. I guess they kind of wanted to see maybe, last leg, see what he had. But, I'm just, again, very glad that the regime and ownership that's here is taking, the winning side first. And it's not an easy thing to eat $42 million. We say it very easy because it's not our money, right? But, it takes a lot, I think, to, put the financials aside and say, hey, this is a player that wasn't fitting to what we're trying to do here. So we're going to try and bring somebody else in that fits and is going to help us win. So, I commend them totally for that. I want to turn around now from Cano, obviously, and kind of go to Friday's no-hitter. That was awesome. McGill got it through 5 innings. It was a 5 pitchers total, 159 pitches. I know there's some people saying that it's not a no-hitter because it's 1 pitcher, but when you look at the score box and the H stands for hits, and you look underneath it and it says 0, that means nobody got a hit. So that's a no-hitter. I know it's a combined one. I don't love them as much. I probably wouldn't be as excited if it wasn't the Mets and they didn't do it against Philly. But, I think it's a really cool accomplishment. I like that, none of the pitchers, I guess, really besides Diaz said that they knew, which was kind of cool and probably helped. So they weren't, trying to feel as perfect for every pitch. But I just wanted to get your thoughts about Friday night, just kind of, what you think of there.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's a no-hitter. I don't care how many pitchers threw in the game. Maybe you're just kind of glad that the first Mets no-hitter wasn't the combined one like we had Johan before this. So maybe that feels more special. But yeah, I mean, it's a no-hitter. I don't think it's any less tougher for 5 pitchers to go out there. I mean, I think you could argue it's actually tougher for it to have that many different skill sets to go out there and hold the other team to no hits. Yeah, I mean, for Drew Smith to come in, I mean, he's been huge for the Mets. And then Joely Rodriguez, he's turned it around recently, but I mean, he started off his Mets career struggling after the fact that there's a lot of people shaking their heads of why the Mets even made that deal. And then Lugo to have a big inning, who again has, I mean, he's certainly struggled for him this year. And then, like you said, with Diaz, I mean, we're talking about Cano, which is the trade that brought Diaz to the Mets and has been kind of universally put down since the trade. But Diaz came into that spot. I mean, a huge spot, no hitter, close game. I mean, it's a save situation against the Phillies in a big spot anyway. And for him to know that the no hitter was going and to pitch in that, I mean, that's got to be huge for Diaz. And I mean, I think it's not that it matters. I think it's huge from a Mets fan standpoint to be able to see Diaz do something like that, to kind of have more trust in him going forward. But I think it's a huge spot for him personally to be able to do that, and right in New York at Citi Field. I think that's got to be a huge boost for him going forward.
Absolutely. No, you mentioned Diaz. I want to get it out there. That was the best Edwin Diaz has looked in a Mets uniform that night. And I think I believe he struck out the side, and he did it against Harper, Hoskins, and Real Muto, if I'm correct. It was the middle of the Phillies order, and he made them look silly. The slider was sharp. The fastball was locating. That really was the best I think I've ever seen Edwin Diaz. And I agree with you there. I'm someone that's been skeptical of Diaz over the years, even after he seemed to kind of figure it out, after 2019 and all that, and he's had a good start to the season this year. It's just always something that makes me a little nervous when he comes out, especially when it's really a non-save situation. Obviously Friday was a different case, but times you run him out there with the 4+ run lead, he seems to run into trouble. But I think, me personally, I'm letting that go. Diaz can flat out pitch. I think he's proven it now. Like I said, it seems like Buck has a lot of trust in him, which I think is really good. I'm sure that helps Diaz a lot in his confidence, not looking over his shoulder if he has a bad outing one day or something like that. So I'm happy for Diaz. He seems to have really turned a corner. And my God, the guy's got the easiest hundo I've ever seen, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the Mets bullpen has had a couple of hiccups, but I think overall they've actually been a pretty solid group. And I don't think Trevor May is going to pitch to how he has all year. So I think they're going to continue to be a decent group. And that's probably where you get a guy during the trade deadline. I mean, that's pretty typical of any contending team, but I think that's where the Mets could have a focus, or the bench too, which they could improve on. But yeah, I mean, Diaz being able to do that on the backside of Rodriguez and Lugo, both coming up in a big spot and pitching well. They've looked good. And McGill, he kind of struggled with his command a little bit more so than he has in the rest of his outings, but he fought through and pitched pretty well. I think that's kind of a statement to what the Mets starting pitchers have been all year. I mean, obviously we know the ERA is the second best in baseball for the starters, but they've also, even if they've gotten trouble early in the games, whether it was Bassett the one start, McGill a couple of starts, even Scherzer struggled with his command a couple times, they've still fought through and been able to give Mets 5, 6, 7 innings for the most part, so that it's not eating into that bullpen and making sure their workload isn't a ton.
Yeah, no, totally agreed. And that's something we talked about, I think, last week as far as with Scherzer and Bassett, how, in the Giants series, that was their main focus, pitching as many innings as they could, help and lengthen out, shorten the game for the bullpen, things like that. And when you make trades and signings like a Scherzer and a Bassett, I think that's part of the expectation is they've, brought kind of, I don't want to call it an old school mentality, but for kind of today's MLB, I guess it is, pitchers don't really get a lot of length. And guys like that, it seems like have come in and brought that kind of mantra, to the pitching staff as far as, hey, yes, you want to get the best that you can, but also, a bullpen can kind of burn out as the year goes on, as we know. So, getting length, especially early in the year when a lot of the pitchers aren't really, fully ready yet, it's a big help. So, I'm really impressed there. And, you talked about Scherzer. Obviously, he pitched yesterday. He didn't have his best stuff, struck out a lot of guys, but that's kind of, to me, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword because he's a strikeout pitcher. He's going to rack up strikeouts no matter what. Kyle Schwarber should never get pitched to ever again, ever. I don't know what it is that he loves hitting against the Mets, but I need it to stop for my mental health. But, he gave up, Scherzer gave up the 3 bombs, the 4 runs. The changeup wasn't that sharp. But again, you talk about kind of gutting through. He got them through 6 innings, had the lead pretty much the whole time. Obviously, he was back and forth a little bit early in the game. But, pitched well enough to keep them in the game. And the Mets offense picked up Scherzer. And I think that's a big thing, too, that, especially talking about with the Cano news and stuff, him getting DFA'd and everything. This lineup is deep, and this is a lineup that can pick you up. And it's nice to see guys like Scherzer and Bassett and McGill. They may not, on times that have their A stuff and kind of have to grind through it, they don't have to worry about being perfect every pitch because they know that they have an offense that could pick them up at any point. And I think we're seeing that over the last couple of weeks. We saw that obviously last night. I think it's a team that turns the wheel to the next guy. They never seem like they're out of it, and they have a plan. I know we're hard on Showalter, but it really. You see, obviously, his fingerprints on all this, and especially to me in the lineup, guys don't really strike out nearly as much as we've seen in the past. They put the ball in play. Like I said, they keep the wheel turning. And also a team like the Phillies, who's obviously defensively challenged. I think we saw that this weekend. They're very bad defensively, but good teams take advantage of those mistakes. And the Mets did that. They've been doing that the last week or so, and it's paying off dividends.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the Mets are never out of these games. The pitching, like we said, with the starting pitching, is keeping them close in games. And this offense, I mean, they still haven't hit for the power I think that they ultimately will, because Alonso hasn't hit for a ton of power. Cano has shown virtually no power. Marte hasn't shown a ton of power. But they're still scoring runs without that. And eventually those guys are going to hit for more power. So I think it shows the ability that they're able to score runs without that power is certainly a good sign going forward. So yeah, the pitching's keeping them in those games, and they're finding ways to score those runs. And getting a guy like Dom hot is obviously good. He struggled mightily to start the season, and not just last night, but the couple of starts before that, he started swinging the bat better, looked less anxious at the plate. So having him contribute and JD Davis off the bat contribute, Guillorme, again, another guy who started off really slow offensively, he's picked it up too. So you need those guys off the bench to pick it up too, especially where they're going to be funneling guys in and out of the DH spot. So yeah, the roster now down to 26 players looks pretty good right now. Everything seems to be clicking right now. There's no glaring weakness now that Cano is gone. So even McCann has been playing better lately with the bat. So yeah, so they're going into, I know we're going to talk about it next. And I know I think the record for the Braves 10-13 is a little misleading. I think this is going to be a tough series for the Mets, but obviously hitting kind of the Braves at a good time where they've struggled recently, even with the return of Ronald Acuna.
Yeah, we'll get to it. They're a tough team, and they always play the Mets tough, especially, at Citi Field. So we'll get to that in a second. But I wanted to talk real quick. Obviously, the Mets had a great series in St. Louis. They had that awesome 5-run ninth inning in the first game. I don't think anybody saw that coming. And if that wasn't a sign that times are changing for this team, I don't know what is, because the Mets always lose that kind of game. But I wanted to kind of get into more. Obviously, the bench is cleared. Mets still get hit by pitches. We heard that MLB sent a representative to the Mets, I believe, the other day to talk to them about the baseballs. have you heard anything about that conversation? Because I just keep laughing to myself that they sit down and they're like, these baseballs really stink. Nobody can hold them. And Major League Baseball just sitting there saying, we know, we're sorry, but we're not going to do anything about it. So do you need us for anything else? Is this conversation over? But they still keep getting hit. It's part of the game, I guess. It's funny. It's I guess every network, right? Even when the Mets aren't on, everyone, I guess, has a buck cam for whenever there's a hit by pitch to see his reaction, which is pretty funny. Obviously, it's annoying. The Mets keep getting hit. But I wanted to touch on that real quick just because I didn't like what the Cardinals said about that whole thing. Their manager was pretty off-putting with his comments, and the bench coach that tackled Alonso from behind that got no suspension or anything like that was a little annoying. And I like what Buck said as far as, our guys get hit in the head and walk to first base. We don't, try and charge the mound or anything when you pitch inside. But, I wanted to just to get that out there a little bit. And then, we can preview the Atlanta series, but I just want to talk to you a little bit about that, run starting in St. Louis there.
Yeah, I think the Mets did everything right there. I don't even still think that pitch from Lopez was actually meant to hit Arenado.
No.
It didn't seem like it to me, just from the type of pitch and everything. But yeah, I mean, the Mets handled themselves well. They went out and defended their pitcher when Arenado came out. I think the Mets were right not headhunting because, again, I don't think that's what they were doing. And Buck said that's not what they were planning to do. So I talked to some of the Mets players and you saw it with Buck Showalter, his reaction. They were pretty surprised that Stubby Clapp didn't get any type of suspension for essentially kind of blindsiding Pete Alonso and taking him down. Between that and some of the things Marmol said after, some of the stuff Michaelis said before that game about Bassett, when Bassett was essentially sticking up for the Cardinals pitchers by placing all the blame on the balls, which is why ultimately I think this became an actual conversation with Major League Baseball because, Major League Baseball isn't going to pop in because some team's getting hit a lot.
Right.
Like they're not having that conversation because of that. They're having the conversation because of what Bassett said.
Right.
And that the Mets are ultimately concerned about the ball, which is what Major League Baseball wants to talk about. And I don't think obviously they're going to do anything right off, but I'm sure Major League Baseball is going to keep talking to teams about that. From a grip standpoint, Bassett said one inning they'll be decent. The next inning they'll suck. The next inning they'll be fine. So, that's obviously an issue. Mets, regardless of the hit by pitch, any of that. So, we'll see if anything happens. We know the balls are different just because the runs are down, home runs are down, the balls are dead. There's balls that Pete Alonso and Lindor have hit recently where you're like, yeah, that's going to be a home run, and then it just dies at the warning track, or even doesn't even get to the warning track. So I don't think this is the last we've heard of the baseballs and Major League Baseball of that part of the story this year.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I can't imagine as a hitter or a pitcher, just the inconsistencies with the baseballs year to year, how much that's got to mess with you, especially as a hitter. If you hit balls on the screws, like you're saying, and they, not even getting to the warning track. And, a year or so ago, those are, 10 rows back. I'm sure it's really frustrating. But just closing on the Mets Cardinals stuff. It's good for baseball when the Mets and the Cardinals hate each other. I'm just going to say that. When the Cardinals are good and the Mets are good, and it's under bad circumstance with the hit by pitches and stuff like that, and what we were saying with the Cardinals bench coach and stuff. But it's good for baseball when the Mets and the Cardinals hate each other and there's a rivalry there. So when they come back in May when they come to Citi Field in May, that should be very interesting and a lot of fun. And we'll see what happens there. But moving on from these last two series, obviously we want to preview the Braves series. Like you said, Braves are scuffling a bit, even with the Cunha back. But this is a big series coming into Citi Field. The Braves always play the Mets tough there, and they know this is a big series. They know the Mets are rolling. Austin Riley said it himself. It's a rivalry. They get up for this game. So I just want to preview this and just talk about hopefully if the Mets are going to be up for kind of this is a big test now this week.
Yeah, and playing 4 games in 3 days with a doubleheader on Tuesday. I guess ultimately a kind of a test will be how much pitching can the Mets get ready for this series. Because on the doubleheader they're going to need another starter. Trevor Williams kind of got knocked around the last time they tried to put him into that role. And David Peterson was great to start the season for the Mets. Got sent down to AAA essentially in a move because Walker was coming up and they wanted a bullpen arm. And obviously there's a lot going on, but Peterson did get shellacked in his AAA start. He gave up 7 runs in less than 5 innings. There's a lot going on there. That game, it was like 40 degrees during first pitch. Obviously, he had pitched really well in the major league level, so probably getting a demotion to the minor leagues was kind of not what he was expecting. So, yeah, there's a lot going on there. But so, yeah, we'll see. That's ultimately what's going to win out here, right? Is we're talking about two teams playing 4 games in 3 days. So it'll really be the depth of each team's pitching staff. And we've talked about the ability of Met starters to go 6 or 7, which is, I mean, that's deep into games when we're talking 2022 baseball. So, but I mean, the Braves pitching staff has been pretty good too. Their starters have been pretty good. So it could become a battle of the bullpens and see what happens there. Ozzie Albies is kind of off to a slow start. Adam Duvall hasn't hit at all for them. But yeah, so their lineup hasn't been as deep as they thought. Acuna hasn't hit well yet, but we're only talking a couple of games. So it'll be interesting. It's going to be a good series. Like you said, the Braves are still a pretty good team despite what their record is. So it's an important series, obviously, early in the season to play well against the Braves. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a split. I mean, I don't think that would surprise anyone, and I don't think that would be a bad thing on the Mets end, although it would certainly end their streak of 7 winning series to start the year. So yeah, it'll be a good series. And as we're talking about this, I want to jump back to Robinson Cano real quick. Cano's agent, Brody Van Wagenen, has
who's that? Never heard of him.
Yeah, he just released a statement. Said that Robbie absolutely still wants to play given the right situation. He can still make a meaningful contribution for a team. Robbie is a true professional with a great deal of respect for the organization. He understands that they had a tough decision to make. He wishes them well going forward. And again, this is Brody Van Wagenen, Robinson Cano's agent now. Also the guy that traded for him.
Still wild. And, he can definitely still help someone. He can come play with me on Sundays with my men's league team. Definitely, I think we can find the spot for him. He hit him, 8th and 9th, not too high, but I think we can find them somewhere. I don't know what else, Brody would say. He stunk. The Mets gave him more of a chance than probably anybody else would have at this point. So you can't really say too much. And I'm sure it's a weird spot for him, like you said, because he was the guy that brought him here and traded for him. It'll be interesting to see if there's teams that take a flyer on him. Like I said, I feel like the Yankees might be a fit just because, and to kind of try and stick it to the Mets a little bit, they might try and do that, see if he has a little, lightning in a bottle there going back to the Bronx. But I don't know. I don't know who's looking for a slow bat speed DH, can't field and can't run. So, that'll be interesting there, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, once he makes it through waivers because no one's claiming him, and then he refuses the minor league assignment, which we're all assuming is going to happen, then, yeah, he'll be out there, and the team only has to pay him the prorated part of the minimum. So
interesting.
I mean, someone might scoop him up because, again, you're paying him the minimum, and you want him to be around some of the young guys because of his clubhouse influence, and then you run him a couple of weeks and see what happens. But yeah, I can't imagine there's much left there. So,
yeah, no, I'm just glad he's not here anymore. Now we don't have to keep beating a dead horse. And again, Dom pushed obviously last night to show that he should be playing every day. But now that Cano's gone and that spot's cleared, really we should be seeing, just basically, Dom and Pete switching between DH and first, I would assume. And obviously probably JD sprinkled there against lefties as a DH. But for the most part now, that's what I would assume would happen with Dom and Pete. And I think that's a good thing. Obviously, something clicked for Dom. Hopefully playing, now he can play every day, whether it's, like I said, switching between first and DH, that can get him a bit of a rhythm because I think he wanted to show everybody, with this Lumen, still a productive player, still someone that, is, valuable on a winning team. So, that'll be interesting how Buck kind of plays that. And, we'll see how it kind of goes from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you said, I think assuming Dom's going to hit, I think he's going to play a lot. Between getting Alonso just a break playing DH, and Smith has looked great at first. So, and then hopefully JD, his ankle's okay after he got pegged, and then he can hit against a bunch of lefties or some righties. He does well against righties too, and Dom does well against lefties. So neither of those are like strict platoon guys, but I think you can mix and match those guys as best as possible and get some guys some days off. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, the Mets just tweeted about Dom Smith right now going 4 for 4. I mean, that was really the coffin for Cano there.
Yeah, no, and good for Dom, not kind of folding under the pressure there and, trying to get himself a second chance. That's great. And, kind of before we close up, I wanted to did say real quick, shout out to Taijuan Walker. Obviously, he pitched on Saturday. That was the only game the Mets lost. Pitched 5 really solid innings. Great to have him back. So hopefully that can be, a big contributor for them, the rest of the first half and, down the stretch in the second half, because we know he faltered kind of last year. I think he got tired, but hopefully he can kind of keep it going because whenever he's pitched this year, he's done very well.
Yeah, he looked pretty good the other day, and obviously that's important for the Mets just to have him healthy, to be able to have more options in the rotation. Like we know, I mean, there's probably going to be another at least minor injury to a pitcher. I mean, you're just playing the percentages here where teams normally use 9 to 10 starters every year. And I mean, they said Jacob deGrom looked better last time, but I mean, that's not a raving review. He wasn't cleared to do anything yet. So we're still a little ways away from deGrom. So you want Walker to stay healthy, everyone else to stay healthy, so they have 5 or 6 good starters. I mean, there's not many off days in this schedule. So the Mets are going to need all the arms that they can get and all the quality innings that they can get.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like we said, it's a tough stretch. You got 4 games in 3 days coming up, and I think 7 games over the next 8 days overall. So going to be a long stretch. Like you said, hopefully the pitching can hold up. I think they'll score runs, but like you said, they got to see how deep the pitching staff is, especially, I guess starter wise, when you're going to kind of be going thin here for the next few days. So should be a lot of fun at Citi Field. Mets are rolling. Robinson Cano's no longer here. This was a lot of fun. So we'll tune in next time. We'll be reviewing the Brave series and previewing the series ahead after that. So enjoy this week, guys. And until then, we'll see you. Let's go Mets.